Welcome back to Motion 24, the one place where the truth behind Roloff Farms finally comes to light. Today, we're breaking a story so explosive, so unsettling, it could shatter the Roloff family's legacy forever. After weeks of investigation, exclusive insider reports, and disturbing new evidence, we've uncovered what appears to be a calculated scheme. One so manipulative, it redefines everything we thought we knew about little people, big world. Behind the wholesome facade of family, faith, and farm life lies something far more sinister, a web of deceit spun from within. At the core of it all, a manufactured crisis, a fake stalker, and a ruthless power play designed to destroy reputations and rewrite the narrative. This isn't just drama, it's betrayal at its most personal. What's unfolding on Roloff Farms isn't a storyline for TV, it's a real-life scandal with consequences that could tear the family apart for good. The cameras captured smiles, but what they didn't show, what we're about to reveal, is the darkness behind them. Stay tuned, the truth is coming, and it changes everything. Before we dive into the exclusive insider reports that are rocking the Roloff world to its core, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to Motion 24, and ring that notification bell. You are not going to want to miss a single second of this unfolding drama. Alright, let's get right into it. Viewers have felt the stress on Roloff Farms for months, even years. The conflict with Zach and Jeremy and the sale of the property's north side aren't the only issues. There have been rumors of a more covert and pernicious power struggle occurring within the large house, according to family sources. Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler, his lifelong companion, are the main characters. Their connection has been portrayed as a solid alliance and a second opportunity at love for the Roloff dynasty patriarch. However, the picture presented by our sources is quite different. They talk about how Caryn's increasing concern about her role and influence, not just on the farm, but in Matt's life as well, has recently caused tension in their relationship. Insiders claim that Amy Roloff's unquestionable happiness is the cause of this. Amy has discovered a new level of happiness and freedom since she married Chris Marek. She is confident, doing well, and has established a life that is totally separate from Matt and the property. Amy is thrilled about this, but Caryn has reportedly been really disturbed by it, according to insiders. Why? Because Amy's joy draws attention to a sharp contrast. For almost 10 years, Caryn's whole identity and world have been inextricably linked to Matt and Roloff Farms. From farm manager to girlfriend to fiancé, she has always been reliant on Matt for her job. She doesn't share the children's strong, unbreakable bond. She lacks the common experience of starting the farm from scratch. According to reports, Caryn started to sense that her carefully built foundation was beginning to crumble as Matt grew older and started thinking about his legacy. The purported plot starts here. It was a methodical, deliberate effort that was sparked by dread rather than an unexpected catastrophe. The dread of losing control, the fear of being replaced, and the concern that Matt would patch things up with Amy and the rest of the family when he gets older. According to reports, Caryn, who has always been presented as a cunning and clever operator, felt the need to fabricate a crisis and a shared adversary in order to make Matt depend entirely and irrevocably on her. She had to cut the few strands of goodwill that remained between Matt and Amy, his ex-wife. She had to make Amy, or at least the concept of Amy, a threat in order to accomplish that. This alleged plan's initial step was executed subtly, almost masterfully. It started with casual, straightforward remarks. According to someone who was aware of some of their private discussions, Caryn began sowing seeds of worry in Matt's mind. It would begin modestly. "Matt, did you see that car? The one that just drove by real slow?" She could ask in the evening while she's sitting on the porch. Matt would deny it, of course. She would do it again a few days later, but it's a country road. "That vehicle is back. It's strange, but it's probably nothing." Out of nothingness, she was weaving a story about being observed. Then came the blunt, albeit veiled, charges. According to reports, she started to gripe to Matt about feeling insecure on the expansive, remote property. She reportedly said Matt in a conversation that was reported to us, in a voice that was loaded with fake vulnerability. "I don't know, honey. Everything just feels different since the drama surrounding the farm sale blew out. I feel like I'm being targeted." She would sigh and utter the sentence that was the foundation of her whole purported plan when Matt would question her about who would attack her. "Yes, it's most likely simply one of Amy's ardent admirers who despises me. You are aware of their online behavior. They blame me for severing the family. They most likely believe that I am undeserving of being here. Just look at how brilliant that statement is. It's not an outright charge against Amy. There is no denying it. She is placing the blame on a faceless, anonymous superfan. However, by doing this, she unavoidably connects Amy's sphere of influence to the imagined threat. Matt is being told, 'Your ex-wife's supporters are a danger to me.' Matt becomes defensive right away as a result, feeling resentful of the baggage from his previous life and protective of Caryn. According to our sources, Caryn simply gave him a damsel in distress who needed his protection from a villain with a direct connection to his past. He is a man who enjoys solving issues. The escalation phase allegedly started after the psychological groundwork was established. At this point, the plot shifts from a suggestion to concrete proof. It is said that Caryn realized that words would not suffice. She required evidence to support her claims and give the threat a tangible, immediate feel. As a result, she expanded her campaign online. According to the results of our investigation, she or someone working on her behalf made a number of anonymous social media profiles, Facebook and Instagram burner accounts with a generic profile picture, no followers, and no personal information. She started sending herself vaguely threatening direct messages from these accounts. The contents of several of these purported DMs have been disclosed to us. It was a good thing they never used overt violence. Her plan might be exposed by a legitimate police probe brought on by overt threats. Rather, they were psychological threats, such as "we're keeping an eye on you. Roloff Farms isn't the place for you. Amy is the real queen of the farm," was the most scathing of them. The clock is ticking. They were intended to appear as though they were created by an irate, devoted fan. One insider said the resulting performance was Oscar-worthy. Every time Caryn saw a new message on her phone, she would fake concern and rush to Matt. Her hands would shake as she showed him the screen. "Look, another one, Nat. This is becoming serious. I'm afraid." Every message she sent was an additional brick in the wall she was erecting between Amy and Matt. Matt wouldn't recognize a fake when he saw these messages. He would see an outright assault on the person he loves, ostensibly coming from a poisonous fandom that is devoted to his ex-wife. We are informed that his annoyance and rage increased daily. He felt powerless, and his rage was aimed at the anonymous stalker, and thus, at Amy, the person they were purportedly protecting. Digital risks, however, might be disregarded. According to reports, Caryn was aware that she had to confront the threat in person. Their home's sanctity must have been violated by the stalker's apparent approach. The minor vandalism started at this point. According to reports, Caryn discovered one of her tires was totally flat when she stepped outside to her car one morning. Deflated, but not slashed, which would be too violent and undoubtedly involve the police. The tire was directly on top of the valve cap. It was an inconvenient and little act of harassment intended to cause unease. She showed Matt that it was an obvious escalation. "Matt, they're here. The property is where they are. My belongings are being touched. What comes next?" The iconic eerie message showed up a week later. It was said to have been placed behind a flower pot on the large house's veranda. The note was made out of magazine cutouts of letters, a classic cliche that added to the drama by making it look like something from a movie. It was a straightforward and terrifying message. Get off her land. Clearly, the her was intended to suggest Amy. Matt's instincts for protection kicked in. He was angry now, not only frustrated. They had broken into his stronghold, the farm. They were terrorizing his spouse. A personal, nearly harsh touch was the last act in this escalation phase. On the show, Caryn has frequently shown her affection for her rose bushes. They provide her delight and pride. She screamed from the garden one afternoon. When Matt hurried outside, he discovered one of her favorite rose bushes crushed, its limbs snapped off, and blossoms all over the place. This was the final straw for Matt. The stalker had progressed from causing property damage and online harassment to damaging something that Caryn held in high regard. It was an obvious, focused, and intensifying intimidation campaign. And according to our sources, Caryn carefully planned each and every occurrence to suggest that she was an ardent Amy Roloff fan. Caryn allegedly played the victim role flawlessly during this whole event. She would appear reserved, jittery, and often looking over her shoulder. She would complain that she had trouble falling asleep and that every sound she heard at night made her heart race. Matt was totally engrossed in the environment of low-grade, ongoing fear that she was fostering. He took responsibility for keeping her safe, and his anger at the person posing this threat grew. According to reports, he began avoiding contact with Amy because he believed that any exchange would lead to additional abuse from her insane admirers. Caryn's strategy was effective. She was effectively isolating Matt and establishing herself as the focal point of his world, the one he needed to keep safe at all costs. Now that Matt was emotionally ready for a confrontation and completely convinced of the stalker's presence, Caryn allegedly got ready to use her trump card. She had to go beyond ambiguous hints and offer a concrete hint, a piece of physical proof that would establish an indisputable connection between the stalker and Amy and Chris' immediate area. This was the boldest element of the plan, the one that would turn the bizarre fan issue into a real family disaster. We are informed that her intention was to cause an irreversible rift, to have Matt face Amy and Chris, to force him to make a final decision. And she knew just the right hint. After the trampled rosebush incident, Caryn did a little drama while Matt was assessing the damage and promising to tighten security. She started to move around, feigning to search for any signs the stalker could have left behind, like footprints. She searched dramatically for a few minutes before coming to a standstill. With her back to Matt, she knelt close to the garden's edge. A pause occurred. Then she gave a little start. "Oh my God, Matt. Come look at this." With a tiny thing in her hand, she rose to her feet. Then she held out her hand to Matt. There was a keychain lying there, but it wasn't any old keychain. It was a recognizable, branded keychain from a popular, if not famous, bakery that Caryn was positive was only 2 blocks from Amy and Chris's Hillsborough home. It was a local location that Amy had previously shared on social media. The evidence she required was the keychain. The smoking gun was the culprit. In a brilliant display of astonishment and hesitance, she gave it to Matt. She is claimed to have said, "Matt, I don't want to make difficulty," in a tremulous voice. "But you realize this, don't you? This is from the tiny cupcake shop close to their home." She didn't even need to mention the names of Chris and Amy. The inference was overwhelming. As Matt took in the information, she allowed the stillness to linger. His gaze shifted from the keychain she was holding to her wide, terrified eyes. In that one instant, Matt's perception of the threat changed. This was no longer a random internet fan who remained anonymous. The keychain implied physical closeness. It implied that the stalker wasn't merely an Amy fan in theory, but rather someone who lived in Amy's neighborhood, who might have been a neighbor, an acquaintance, or possibly someone closer. Caryn had been successful in sowing doubt about Amy's followers, but also about the whole milieu in which Amy and Chris lived. She took advantage of the situation. She allegedly whispered, "What if it's someone they know, Matt? What if one of their buddies is simply mentally ill? Perhaps they hear Amy whine and believe that by harming me, they are assisting her." Look at the tactical genius again. She isn't pointing the finger at Amy. Amy is being framed by her as a possible unintentional provocateur whose negative emotions are giving power to a hazardous third party. This enables her to keep up a facade of rationality while yet blaming Amy for the issue. Matt apparently had a terrible effect. The thought that this threat was coming from within the family's wider circle now overwhelmed him. The options whirled in his imagination. Who might it be? Who could have done this? And did Amy and Chris know? A deep sense of betrayal now mingled with his wrath. He believed that, at best, Amy and Chris had fostered this type of conduct by creating a poisonous workplace, and at worst, they knew who was doing it and were doing nothing about it. The keychain turned become the focal point of the whole story. Caryn would talk about it a lot. When she would say, "I can't stop thinking about that keychain. It just feels so personal." She had managed to turn a piece of metal and plastic into a representation of treachery. It was her evidence that the threat was genuine, focused, and closely related to the one individual she wished to permanently remove from Matt's life. We are told that the environment on the farm grew intolerable. Matt becomes suspicious and reclusive. He watched every automobile that went by, always on edge. He was unable to discuss the one issue that was taking up all of his time, which caused tension in his talks with his kids. How could he explain to Molly or Zach that he thought Caryn was being terrorized by someone in their mother's circle? He was being isolated just as Caryn had intended, and it was an untenable position. She had him exactly where she wanted him to be, terrified, furious, and emotionally reliant on her alone. They had to work together to safeguard her. They were united in their fight against an external enemy, one that indirectly involved Amy's face. A rift that she had created was expanding into a gaping abyss. Matt was about to confront Amy and Chris, which would have ruined the family dynamic, destroyed any chance of reconciliation, and given Caryn the upper hand in her quiet struggle for dominance. However, Caryn's elaborate plot failed to consider one aspect. Matt Roloff's natural inclination to both defend and solve had been underappreciated by her. Fear was not something he was willing to accept. He was a project guy and a man who got things done. At the height of his paranoia and terror, Matt decided he had had enough of playing the victim. He intended to handle things on his own. He chose to retaliate by using technology to permanently reveal the identity of the assailant, rather than by directly confronting Amy. He planned to build a stronghold at Roloff Farms, but he unwittingly built a trap that would reveal a surprising truth and a betrayal much closer to home than he had anticipated, rather than an obsessed admirer. Everything was prepared for the revelation and confession that would alter the course of events. Matt made a substantial commitment because he was truly worried and because he needed answers. He enlisted the help of a professional security firm and had a brand new, cutting-edge security camera system placed across the entire property. We're talking about a network of high-definition cameras that can record to the cloud, detect motion, and see in the dark. From the driveway to the porches, the garden, and the perimeter, he wanted it everything covered. In his words, "Whoever this is, we're going to catch them. Their game is over." Our source tells us that Caryn pretended to be relieved and informed him that she felt much safer after that. On the inside, though, terror must have taken root. A machine's unwavering objectivity was about to be applied to her meticulously scripted story. Roloff Farms was enveloped in a strange silence for several weeks. The lenses of the high-tech cameras stealthily scanned the land all day and night. An end was made to the menacing texts. The disturbing occurrences stopped. It appeared to Matt like a resounding triumph. The menacing stalker had been scared away only by seeing the cameras. Feelings of immense pride and relief washed over him. He had defended his house and his partner with swift and determined action. He supposedly confided in a buddy, saying, "See, all it took was letting this person know they were being watched. They picked the wrong guy to mess with." With the problem seemingly resolved, he finally started to relax after months of anxiety. Our sources, however, indicate that Caryn was anything but at ease. The lack of wind ruined her strategy. The forward motion had ceased. Her power was dwindling as the acute danger was receding. Even though she had succeeded in causing a rift between Matt and Amy, it was short-lived. Matt would be able to calm down and think more clearly if there wasn't an ongoing danger. He might even contact Amy to set things straight. Allegedly, Caryn understood she needed a final dramatic occurrence to set the situation off and force Matt to intervene. She thought she could figure out a way to evade the cameras, which were a big obstacle. There was no turning back now that the strategy was on the verge of success. She needed a partner she could rely on completely, someone who wouldn't be seen as associated with her, at least not at first sight. To keep her identity hidden, she had the ideal person in mind, a close friend of hers named Deborah. Rumor has it that Deborah had some animosity against the dynamic inside the Roloff family, believing that Caryn was frequently treated like an outsider, and that this animosity manifested itself in her fierce loyalty to Caryn. Deborah was supposedly convinced by Caryn's confession, in which she painted a picture of her own powerlessness and terror, that they needed to fabricate one last event to make Matt take the danger seriously and deal with the root of the problem. The plot was straightforward. Deborah would take cover, sneak up on that house in the dead of night when the shadows were long, drop one last ominous message, and then vanish. It was confirmed that the stalker was still active and had the audacity to disregard the new security measures when the cameras caught a silhouette. As desperate as Caryn was, she made the dangerous move anyhow. The trap was set on a moonless Tuesday night. Matt received a notification on his phone from the new system's motion detectors. He was examining the farm's financial records in his office. The warning came up: motion detected at front porch. His pulse raced. With fixation fixed on the screen, he accessed the live feed. Beautiful black and white infrared rendered the footage sharp. A shadowy figure with a hooded sweatshirt pulled low over their head was visible to him. Darting from the shadow of the big oak trees towards the house, the figure moved swiftly, almost stealthily. By the time they got to the porch, they had dropped a little white package on the welcome mat and were on their way out into the night. Less than 30 seconds passed during the whole thing. An intense rush of excitement and rage was Matt's initial response. "I've got you," he said to the screen. He promptly walked outside, grabbed the note, and contacted Caryn, who was presumed to be at her home in town. He saved the clip. She gave a credible performance of fear over the phone in response to his account of what transpired. Now, though, the video was all that mattered to Matt. He had evolved from victim to detective. Resuming his position at his desk, he proceeded to examine the video with the methodical eye of an engineer. He continued to play it again and over. Frame after frame, he reduced the speed. He leaned in closer to the figure, attempting to catch a sight of anything, their hands, their face, whatever it might be. The hood and the darkness provided near total concealment, making the disguise effective. Then something struck him as he saw the figure retreat 10 times in a row. What mattered most was the individual's gait, not their attire. The person walked with a tiny limp in their right leg, which created a rhythmic pattern in their stride, like a dip and recover action, and a very noticeable, almost undetectable hitch in their step. I recognized it. Something tightened in Matt's gut. Before this, where had he seen that person walk? The idea was dismissed by him. Strangers couldn't have been inside. However, he couldn't get rid of the picture. Resuming playback, he narrowed his focus to the figure's lower extremities as they traversed the gravel path. It was back, plain as day. A cascade of thoughts about everyone he knew started racing through his head. Then it dawned on him. He felt a sudden shock, like if someone had poured cold water down his spine. It walked and limped just like Deborah, Caryn's buddy. Over the course of 100 farm barbecues, parties, and dinners, he had witnessed her stroll. She sustained a small but long-lasting injury in a vehicle accident many years ago. She strolled. Matt sensed his face dripping with blood. I don't think so. What is Deborah's motivation behind this? It was contradictory. Refusing to believe what his eyes were showing him, his mind sent him reeling. Further evidence was necessary for him. He fumbled with his laptop and stumbled across Caryn's Facebook page. He continued to browse her photo album until he came upon a video clip from a summer birthday celebration. He initiated playback. Deborah was seen strolling across the yard, carrying a cake plate. Matt cut the film short, returned to the surveillance footage, and then aired both clips simultaneously. It was an impeccable fit in every way: rhythm, tempo, and the little dip of the right leg. It couldn't have been a coincidence in a million years. I recognized her. The room started to swirl. What did that imply if Deborah was the stalker? Unsettlingly, things began to fall into place. Deborah was the one Caryn trusted most deeply. Without Caryn's knowledge, she would never do anything like this. The keychain was purchased at a bakery close to Amy's residence. Deborah resided in a neighboring town. Obtaining it would have been a breeze for her. Little things that necessitated access and familiarity with the farm's layout, like the deflated tire and the crushed roses. Then everything hit me like a ton of bricks. Caryn's responses, her strategically timed terror, her leading questions, and the way she subtly but consistently held Amy's superfans responsible. It was scripted, not a succession of random attacks. The whole thing was staged. Unbeknownst to him, Matt Roloff was both the principal performer and the main spectator. A physical blow that rendered him breathless was the overwhelming sense of betrayal. The most thorough manipulation, gaslighting, and playing of him that one could imagine had taken place. It was an elaborate fabrication, meant to exploit his feelings, inflame his wrath, and cut him off from his loved ones. It was more than just a lie. For her own benefit, the woman he loved and intended to spend the remainder of his life with had devised a campaign of psychological terror against him. The light from the two movies illuminated Matt's shocked face as he sat in the dark for what seemed like hours. His wrath was boiling up, and it was unlike anything he'd ever experienced before. His gut told him he couldn't face Caryn just yet, though. Without a doubt, she would insist it did not happen. She was dishonest. To make him look insane for even proposing it, she would turn the tables on him. He must go to the wellspring. He was in need of an admission. It was imperative that he listen to Deborah say it herself. Matt omitted the phone call to Caryn the following day. Her calls were directed to voicemail by him. He was aware that remaining composed and strategic was crucial. He went to the town's coffee shop, where Deborah waited for customers, in his car. He last saw her leaving her office building and making her way to the little cafe at about midday. He stepped out of his vehicle and walked up to her at the exact moment she was about to open the door. "Just Deborah," he blurted out. He spoke in a low, emotionless voice. As she turned to face him, a moment of startlement and then terror flashed across her face. "Matt, why are you here? Is everything all right?" she questioned, her voice somewhat too high-pitched. He casually stated, "We need to talk," while pointing to a park bench as he spoke. Sitting on the bench, they swore, "It's important." The stifling tension between them was heightened by the sounds of the town square. Lacking in idle chatter, Matt got right to the point. With the security footage displayed on his phone, he held it up to her face. He hit play. Silently, he allowed the footage of the masked man with the noticeable limp to repeat indefinitely. With her face turning pale, Deborah gazed at the TV. She loosened her jaw somewhat, but she remained silent. She shifted her gaze from the phone to meet Matt's icy, unwavering gaze. Her bluster vanished in the blink of an eye. She lowered her shoulders and let out a cry. "Matt, I can explain," she mumbled. Matt thundered a resounding no into the microphone. "You can't, but you can tell me the truth. You can tell me everything. Right now." And just like that, it all flew out. Anguish, shame, and a last-ditch effort at protecting oneself overflowed into the confession. Deborah sobbed uncontrollably. She came clean and said she was in the video. She was completely forthright. However, she maintained repeatedly that she had nothing to do with the proposal. From the start, it belonged to Caryn. According to what she told Matt, Caryn had confided in her weeks or months earlier, describing her feelings of insecurity and terror at Matt's impending age and the possibility that he would seek reconciliation with Amy in order to preserve the family history. Caryn also expressed her fear that her hold on him and the property was eroding. As she sobbed, Deborah detailed how the whole stalker fake came to be. Caryn had suggested the idea as a benign way to show Matt how much he relied on her, she said. Deborah confessed while wiping her eyes, calling it Operation Damsel in Distress. Debbie confessed to assisting Caryn in creating the fictitious social media accounts, saying, "She said you were a protector, a white knight, and she needed to create a dragon for you to slay." Caryn would sit next to her and dictate the words as she sent the threatening direct messages from a burner phone. Late one night, she admitted, she sneaked into the farm to remove the tire's air. Caryn had specifically instructed her to get the keychain from the bakery close to Amy's house, as she thought it would be an ideal piece of evidence to plant. She even admitted to buying it. Deborah murmured with a heavy voice, her expression betraying her embarrassment. She was very proud of that idea. She said it was the masterstroke that would make you see the threat was coming directly from Amy's world. The narrative has intensified. Deborah exposed the depth to which Caryn manipulated on a psychological level. Caryn had instructed her on the proper course of action to take. Knowing that this particular touch would infuriate Matt, she had even told Deborah to crush the rosebush. The whole plan was to drive a wedge between Matt and his family and force him to rely solely on Caryn by instilling feelings of anger, isolation, and protection in him. Deborah stated she began to question things and felt things were getting out of hand, but Caryn wouldn't budge. They were already too far in, she'd tell Deborah. If they did just one more thing, Matt would confront Amy, and the whole affair would end. The last note was meant to serve as that concluding shove. Matt listened with an unwavering expression. Absorbed in this repulsive confession, he stood still. The treachery had progressed from mere suspicion to a well-planned and verified conspiracy. He was the object of a sociopathic scheme, not merely deceived. Because of the lack of any other suitable description, the word sociopathic resounded in his thoughts. It took someone seriously disturbed to manipulate emotions with such cold, calculated precision, invent threats, and systematically torment the person you claim to love. The kind partner and supporting fiancé Caryn presented to him was all an act, he knew. The master manipulator and puppeteer behind it treated him like a prize, something to be obtained and controlled by whatever methods were required, rather than a partner. Her confession was completed by Deborah, who buried her face in her hands. "I'm really sorry, Matt," she finally managed to say. "I should have thought twice before listening to her. She has a way of persuading people." At last, Matt rose to his feet. His expression was one of icy clarity as he beheld the battered woman slumped on the bench. Truth was his weapon, and he had it. "You're right," he remarked, his tone remaining unconvincing. "You never should have." He then turned and silently returned to his car, abandoning her to cry on the bench. I don't remember much of the ride back to the farm. Matt's emotions were all over the place. Fury, sadness, and contempt. The memories they had shared with Caryn were now contaminated. Her previous expressions of affection felt like screenplay lines. It seemed to him that he had distanced himself from Amy, been abrupt with his children, and let himself be engulfed by this staged scenario. A growing, unyielding resolution lay behind the shame that made him feel like a fool. Absolute betrayal had occurred, but deceit was ended. By this point, he had a firm grasp on his opponent. Returning to Roloff Farms, he would see the mansion he had constructed, a residence that had been transformed into a set for a repulsive and depraved performance. Plus, he was determined to track down the leading lady. Matt Roloff was prepared to put a cap on Caryn Chandler's performance as the lights were about to go down. All of the Roloff family's futures were on the brink of a decisive showdown. What happens next is still developing, but sources say the fallout will be unlike anything we have ever seen. The engagement, the partnership, the very foundation of Matt's life for the past decade has been built on a lie, and the truth is about to bring it all crashing down. We will continue to follow this breaking story and bring you the latest reports as they come in. What would you do if you were Matt? Is there any possible forgiveness for a betrayal this deep? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you are subscribed to Motion 24 because the next chapter of this scandal is one you cannot afford to miss. More update. Little People. Big World star Matt Roloff's selfish new farm decision disappoints fans. Amy Roloff still working for Matt on farm? And Matt and Amy Roloff daughter-in-law strips down. And Little People. Big World fans irritated react to Matt Roloff's story. I will explain everything. Many Little People, Big World viewers felt so sad and selfish after seeing Little People. Big World actor Matt Roloff's new farm decision. The TLC star informed his Instagram fans on April 29 that he was relisting a piece of Roloff Farms for sale. This is more than just a property. It's a legacy in the making, thanks to its size, potential, and charming character, as Matt captioned the update. The asking price for the parcel of Roloff Farms is $2,895,000. Originally offered in 2023, Matt's Helvetia, Oregon property, which included the big house and 16 acres, is now used as a vacation rental. He made the decision after he and his sons, Zach and Jeremy Roloff, were unable to reach an agreement on the price for the 6,000 square foot house and the acreage next to it. Viewers' opinions on the reality show varied in the comments. One person even wrote, "So fun," in support, and others joined in. "Best of luck with the sale." And someone else said, "Wonderful house. As you embark on this new chapter, may you be blessed with success." On the other hand, some people were disappointed that something couldn't have been worked out with the kids, and to see it up for sale was one person's "so sad" statement. "Sad and selfish," another said, because he sold it instead of leaving it to his descendants. That is terrible. It is extremely disappointing to see who greedy Matt is being. One Instagram fan wrote, in reference to someone who had grown up watching the show, "I would prefer to preserve this lovely land for future generations rather than make a profit from it." Little People Big World wasn't just created by Matt. The entire family was involved. Rather than keeping everything in the family, Amy should have gotten everything. Others have made the observation that it is kinda sad created your own Disneyland, and your grandkids won't get to experience it. Another voiced agreement, adding, "Sad. Your kids gave up their childhood to work on the show, and you can't even share it with them. Selfish beyond belief." Roloff recently dropped hints about an era coming to a close, which also made fans emotional. LPBW, Amy Roloff still working for Matt on farm? Some viewers of Little People, Big World may have noticed something new about Amy Roloff. At Roloff Farms, is she still employed by Matt Roloff? Fans of the TLC show Little People, Big World have been knowing for a while that season 25 is now ended, since the series finale just aired. The next big thing is sure to pique the interest of many spectators. Until TLC makes a formal announcement, the fate of the franchise is uncertain following Zach and Tori Roloff's departure. Audience is waiting to find out what the cast and crew are up to now that production has wrapped for the season. With the sale of her Little People Big World stake to Matt Roloff, Amy Roloff effectively made him the only owner of Roloff Farms. People who don't watch the TLC show nevertheless flock to Roloff Farms, making it a popular tourist destination and a community staple. Although Matt Roloff owns Roloff Farms entirely, A few fans have detected something strange about Amy's website that makes it seem like she might still be helping out with the farm. Despite her busy schedule, Amy remains a pillar of support for the 100-plus acre family farm close to Portland, Oregon, as stated in the text. At the height of pumpkin season in the fall, it becomes a popular site for sightseers. She may continue to gather with her family there, and she'll also find ideas for new cuisine. Amy Roloff's level of involvement with Roloff Farms and the significance of her continued financial assistance for the farm's daily activities are both unclear. They clearly keep up a friendly relationship despite the fact that Amy and Matt Roloff still argue from time to time. Season 1 viewers of Little People, Big World were aware that Amy chose Roloff Farms as the site of her fundraising. On top of that, Matt had already informed Amy that the farm will be left to her in the event of his untimely demise. The farm would not be what it is now without Amy Roloff's contributions, regardless of the outcome of their marriage. Therefore, her continued involvement with Roloff Farms is logical in some manner. Their current level of cooperation is questionable given how easily Amy and Matt irritate one another. Even though they had their share of arguments and squabbles, many Little People Big World supporters praise them for remaining respectful enough to continue the legacy they created. LPBW Matt and Amy Roloff daughter-in-law strips down. Former Little People Big World star Amy Roloff's daughter-in-law recently showed fans a side of herself they haven't seen before. Bare. With that said, what else do the most recent changes disclose? The Little People Big World Roloff tree grows larger with each passing year. What began with Matt and Amy Roloff and their 4 kids has expanded into so much more. Sons and daughters of Roloff now have their own branches to add to the bigger family tree. The Roloff family consists of Zach, Tori, and their 3 children. Furthermore, there is Matthew Roloff, who is the son of Jacob and Isabel Roloff. The Roloffs are a married couple with 3 children and another one on the way. In contrast to her spouse Joel Silvius, Molly Roloff does not have any biological children of her own. Little People Big World viewers were shocked when Audrey Roloff recently undressed to her panties. Following their departure from the family TLC show, Audrey and Jeremy have become somewhat contentious. They are both known to having controversial opinions that fans find disconcerting. In the most recent episode of Little People, Big World, Audrey revealed that she is expecting her 4th child with Jeremy Roloff by stripping down to reveal her baby bump. Audrey, Jeremy, and their children will soon have a total of 6 members, long after fans noticed that Tori and Audrey appeared to trade having infants in rapid succession. Despite the fact that Audrey Roloff's most recent post is a bit risque and designed to draw attention, one cannot ignore the noticeable growth of her baby belly. Considering that they are now counting down the days of her pregnancy, this is highly relevant. She proudly displayed her growing baby belly in her black number and made the statement, "Things are getting lower around here. This weekend was tough on me pregnancy-wise. The last few weeks are the most challenging since new pains begin to appear, and I suspect the physical stress of relocating last week is also showing its effects." An entirely new Roloff family member will be joining Jeremy and Audrey Roloff very soon, regardless of how Little People Big World fans feel about them. Matt and Amy Roloff will be grandparents again, and Audrey and Jeremy will have a party of 6. Little People Big World fans irritated react to Matt Roloff's story. Not long ago, Little People Big World patriarch Matt Roloff broke the news to Caryn Chandler that they were no longer together. Just a few TLC viewers were angered with a follow-up report, but almost no one was surprised. Discover the reason behind it by reading on. Finding out about the breakup didn't need much digging because Matt announced it on Instagram before the weekend. Writing, "Caryn and I have decided to part ways and end our engagement." He published his decision online. After then, he brought up the word amicable and the idea of cherishing memories as a result of the breakup. So that TLC viewers couldn't post, he also locked the comments. They are still talking about it somewhere else, though. No one was surprised by the first report because they had a sneaking suspicion that something was off between the pair, but a subsequent story just served to annoy them further. It was reported in multiple sites, including The Sun US, that Matt Roloff had spent more than $1 million on Caryn prior to their breakup. Also, several people thought it came across as fake news and was simply exaggerated to get more clicks. A lot of Redditors were irritated since the stories were about Matt's new house that he constructed on the property. Over the course of several years, he kept everyone updated on his development. Though she owned a home before, Caryn decided to sell it. On the rare occasions that the couple visited Oregon, she lived in it, but he didn't construct it with her in mind. The numerous outlets were accused by One Little People, big world fan, of writing the tale for clicks. One more just dismissed it as fake news. Just because Matt constructed a house and lived in it with his ex-fiancée doesn't mean he should be held financially responsible for their breakup. Another supporter remarked, "If he did, he didn't. That would be a pretty stupid way to spend your money." This person implied that he didn't merely give his ex the full sum, and the TLC patriarch is very picky about where he spends his money. Keeping the Hillsborough house seems improbable for Caryn Chandler. Finally, the land is technically owned by the farm. The attorneys will likely thoroughly review any pay that is owed to Caryn. Additional information may become available at a later stage. The lack of a marriage license means that the divorce hearing is unlikely to drag on for very long. No more today. What are you thinking about this gossip today? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel to get more updates like this. Thank you.